Hello, everyone. Mark Twain, the great American writer, once said, "There are many dates in a human's life which are important, but there are only two dates which are important in a human life. The day they are born and the day they found out why they are born." This is the struggle to free Iran. To free Iran from the yokes of the shahs and the sheikhs has been an epic struggle against the icons of authoritarianism and brutality. It has been a struggle to build institutions of democracy and the establishment of a plural and constitutional order. You may have heard it has been a century-long struggle, and that this narrative which I'm going to describe today will document that has been a story of bravery, unrelenting spirit of free will, and also diametrically opposed, a cautionary tale of opportunism and betrayal. At the end, what will unlock the riddle of Iran are lessons which are learned, and are learned by whom? The story begins here with the Sattar Khan and Babur Khan, who were technically the constitutional framers of the Constitution of Iran in 1905. It was the first Enlightenment revolution in the Islamic world, the very first one. It led to the creation of the first popularly elected parliament, Majlis, in the Middle East, only to see an opportunist, an Akhund, with aid from Russian troops, storm the Majlis, kill the movement, and butchery and enslavement followed. Many of you in the audience, especially the older kind, will know who Nuri was. It took another 2 generations. There was another first. Mohammad Mossadegh became the first democratically elected prime minister in the Muslim Middle East. He passed laws. He wanted to establish, of course, a government for the people and control its national resources for the people. The laws were going to make the world's first oil company, international oil company, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, which is now called, how many of you know this? BP, yes. British Petroleum, to be owned by the people and for the people. While it is now documented history that CIA, with Operation Ajax in 1953, acted to remove Mossadegh from power, it was operationally only possible by betrayal of yet another Akhund, a Mullah, Abul Qasim Kashani, and with the aid of and his shock troops, the so-called Fedayaan Islam, and of course by paid mobsters and mercenaries, such as Sha'ban Bimokh, which ended in the 28th Mordad. Mordad is the Iranian month, coup d'etat. Again, yet another tale of opportunism and betrayal. For those who are maybe interested in this internet dump of the CIA memo, it reads like this: target Prime Minister Mossadegh and his government. Objectives: through legal or quasi-legal methods to effect the fall of the Mossadegh government and to replace it with a pro-Western government under the Shah's leadership. The CIA plan of action was implemented in 4 phases. This is how history evolves. Ajax became the first successful operation by CIA. It led to the downfall of Mossadegh, his arrest, and who eventually was brought to court in November 1953, and the Shah was brought back to power, and the CIA and MI6 had their man. And Iran officially became a client state. Absolute rule pursued. It began immediately in August of 1953 and went on for a couple of decades. Those who paid were the Iranians. Among them were the entire Central Committee members of the Mujahideen Khalq Organization of Iran, who were killed in 1972. The man with the star, you can see, is Asghar Badizadegan, who was at the time on the faculty of chemistry at Technical University of Tehran. And here, as has been also alluded by several speakers before me, for those people who still harbor some romantic illusions of monarchy in Iran, this should be a vivid reminder. And then, of course, came later the killing of, these are just examples, okay? Every one of you perhaps could have equally well produced other examples. The killing of the Mujahideen and Fedayeen members in April 1975, exactly 50 years ago. This particular one was orchestrated in a plot by a top Savak official whose name was Parviz Sabiti. I will come back to him soon. But people's resolve endured. It took a while, but it culminated in 1979 in the revolution against the Shah. Monarchy fell. You can see it says Shah Raft, means Shah left Iran, that is, for the second time, not for the first, but for the second time. But before he left, he did one thing. On this stage, he demonstrated and proved to the people of Iran that he was forever the enemy of Iranian people. Forever. The struggle succeeds, but the will of the people is again, I will come back to it and why this happens. For a third time, it was hijacked by the genocidal mullahs. Volumes have been written about this and said, but not everything, of course. Here you would naturally ask, why does this happen? How does history act in this really cruel and weird fashion? In his book, The 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte, Karl Marx famously observed that history repeats itself the first time as tragedy, the second time as farce. Okay. This profound statement, which is of course now in textbooks, as a meditation on the French revolutions of 1789 and 1848. First, the overthrow of the monarchy, then the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte, was not only a comment on political recurrence, it was a philosophical appeal to the physical principle of causality. It's a bedrock of physics, the idea that every effect springs from a cause, and that history is governed by chain reactions of error and betrayal. Viewed from this lens, Iran's modern history is painfully instructive. The 1979 revolution, ultimately captured by theocratic despotism, began as a genuine struggle. an uprising, a collective cry against a monarchy that has turned into a modern tyranny. The Pahlavi regime, with its Savak apparatus, trained in the dark art of surveillance and torture, sowed its own demise, its own collapse. This brutality and arrogance of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi's rule created the very vacuum into which Khomeini and his political cohort surged, unleashing a reign of terror that endures to this day. Masoud Rajavi, pictured here, was only released from prison a few weeks before the revolution succeeded. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the cause and effect Marx has alluded to. Now Iran stands again on the precipice of change, when an evolutionary path forward from history, it actually exists. We have been discussing it since this morning. But as the saying goes, when the stars come out, so do the bats. This time, history not merely repeats itself, it spews the past. What it brings up is not a coherent narrative, but a toxic mixture of revisionism, opportunism, and betrayal, an amalgam of historical artifacts woven into the fabric of lies and deceit. A clique of grotesque wannabes, those regurgitated monarchists and long-dormant former torturers of Iran's youth, skilled in the art of deception and treachery, they are at it. They are the noxious mix of chemicals when history throws up. Men who have not held an honest day's job, not even an honorable graveyard shift at a 7-Eleven. One claims that he could not have been a torturer because he was trained in law. This is not only hollow, it is grotesque. History offers parallels, grim parallels. Hans Frank was a German lawyer before he became the Nazi governor of occupied Poland. He was hanged in Nuremberg for his crimes against humanity. Legal training is no inoculation against moral depravity. But finally, the long arm of the law at last may now have been wrapped around his neck. These unrepentant charlatans of yesteryears now make actually bets with the Revolutionary Guards. They harbor dreams of coronating the killers of Iran's youth. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the monarchist Machiavellian dream. Okay? This is their proto-model for ruling Iran. This is how they want to gain power. Question is, why? Why we may be here? It may be for the lessons that you and I refuse to learn over and over again. It is when we ignore these lessons is when and how we surrender ourselves to the vicious cycle of brutality and betrayal. What are those lessons? First, Iranians of all masses thoroughly rejected monarchy in their ranks in 1979, period. Lesson number two, that they paid in blood of Iran's youth, forged in the crucible of torture, rape, and execution. But foremost, of all, freedom is never bestowed by dynasties on foreign patrons. It is earned through sacrifice, resistance, and unbreakable commitment to justice. These are not merely words for a class on politics, but these are things which are now being practiced. Has anybody learned these lessons? Is there really hope? Of course, in this convention, in this gathering, these are merely rhetorical questions, right? Why? Because it is here that history now acts as a distiller. Okay? Just as any parent knows that when a child throws up is the human body's attempt to rid itself of toxins, the current historical dispute is a manifestation of Iran body politics ridding itself of the remains of diseased organs. This distillation is absolutely necessary to accelerate the progress toward the establishment of a free Iran. Now, the ultimate question is, as I also said at the beginning, whom does it? There is only one group right now, as we speak, which has crystallized all of these above lessons into action, into practice. It has a historically accurate roadmap for a democratic future in Iran. It has an evidence-based approach to resistance, and also importantly, it has a government which works in exile. Before I turn to my concluding slide, I'd like to sort of share a thought, one which sort of derives from my professional strength. Newton's third law is the bedrock of classical physics. Okay? All of those people who have taken physics in undergraduate, in college, I am sure must have seen it. In fact, you act it every time you get up from the bed, from your chair. Okay? It is the Newton third law that pushes you up. Okay? For every action, there is a reaction. Every reaction is a response to an action. We interrogate the world, this I do in my job, the universe, by the responses we receive from the interactions in the physical realm. To understand what mujahideens are, what NCRI does, you merely listen to what the words the regime utters and how it reacts. Now, the new Iran will not have a need for an icon of authority, culture, or religion. Iran's liberation will not be paved with the ill-gotten gold of people's treasury, and it will be written in the blood and tears of those who shout, "We shall free Iran." Thank you.